Hello and welcome aboard the UNS Fresh Spring Chicken. I'll be your pilot and host, Captain Fantasy. Here on the Fresh Spring Chicken, quality is key, and we prepare to trip around the Earth to showcase its biomes with the boon of modern commodities. So strap in. It's going to be a smooth ride. Our first stop is Chile, Antarctica, located in, Antarctica. This biome is solely on the one continent in the south pole of the planet, and it is the coldest and driest around. In addition to being so cold and so dry, it's also among the windiest of biomes on Earth. The coldest temperature recorded is negative 128.6 degrees Fahrenheit. For you guys that love Celsius, that's about negative 88 degrees Celsius. On average, because it's so dry, most of the biome only gets about 2 inches of snowfall per year, despite its chilly exterior. One of the first guests that we'll meet on our excursion on the Fresh Spring Chicken is the Antarctic graze, which tolerates temperatures up to below 0 degrees Celsius, at which it is barely functioning. The plant will freeze over, actually, in order to survive this. The plant is also self-pollinating, with flowers closed and seeds forming during the warmer parts of the range during the summer months. Another denizen is our Antarctic pearlwort, which tolerates very cold temperatures and can photosynthesize at freezing point. Next up are Antarctic lichens, which cope with long periods of drought, have protective mechanisms to avoid damage from high radiation, similar to the, very irradiated compared to other parts of the planet conditions of Antarctica, and can withstand freezing temperatures. These adaptations have all implication for growth and survival, particularly in response to climate change and human activities, beneficially enough to the lichens. Next up are soft green mosses, which have compounds like antifreeze in their cells here in Antarctica. Many mosses have tightly packed stems and shoots as well, which minimizes water loss in such a dry environment. And our last plant, sparsely spread across Antarctica, is the liverworts, which have very similar adaptations to the mosses. We've come across our first animal denizen here in Antarctica, chinstrap penguin. Penguins have webbed feet for powerful swimming. Their bodies are also streamlined to reduce drag in water, as well as their wings, which are shaped like flippers, which help them fly, I guess you could say, underwater at speeds up to 15 miles per hour. They have thick skin and lots of blubber under their skin to keep warm in such cold weather, and water, of course. They also huddle together with their friends, penguin buddies, companions, colleagues, etc., to keep warm. Other penguins include the emperor penguin, which will be up next. The emperor penguin has developed quite the social behavior that when it gets too cold, they huddle together in groups that comprise several thousand penguins. The dark-colored feathers of the penguin's back surface absorb heat from the sun, so it helps them keep them warm too. Penguins also have tightly packed feathers that overlap to provide waterproofing and warmth. They coat their feathers with an oil from a gland near the tail to increase impermeability. Waterproofing is critical to the penguin's survival in water. Antarctic seas may be as cold as negative 2.2 degrees Celsius, which for us imperials is 28 degrees Fahrenheit, and rarely gets above 2 degrees Celsius, which is 35.6 degrees Fahrenheit. Look over there, it's breaching. Sea orca whale, which can swim very fast, up to 30 miles per hour to catch prey. They can easily glide through the water with the use of their dorsal fin and pectoral flippers to keep them streamlined. They have blubber for warmth, thick blubber, similar to the penguins. Echolocation is used for communication with their own pod, as well as other pods, which they only breed exclusively with other pods to prevent interbreeding, giving them a more diverse gene pool. They also have sharp teeth to rip apart and chew their prey. They can dive deep into water for 1 to 4 minutes. In diving deep, their lungs collapse to force air into their windpipe and nasal ducts to prevent the body from eternally absorbing nitrogen. They tolerate higher amounts of nitrogen than humans, though. Oh, look over there. They must have startled quite the bull elephant seal, which this guy is a southern elephant seal being native to Antarctica. Southern elephant seals have large floppy heads, strong front flippers used to steer while they swim, and rear flippers used for propulsion. Complementing their absolutely tremendous bulk is the inflatable trunk-like proboscis of the bull elephant seals, which this guy is. The southern elephant seal's large eyes indicate that vision is a must for hunting in dark ocean depths. The discharge they emit when coming from the water is actually the method by which excessive salt. They get this salt from ingesting seawater, and it's eliminated from their bodies this way. To avoid predation, young southern elephant seals have darker backs and much lighter bellies. This allows camouflage and blending in with the lighter water when viewed from below, and the darker water when seen from above. Orcas are their primary predators, mostly preying upon inexperienced young seals at sea. Ah, look, a snow petrel. Look how cute he is. Melts my icy Antarctic heart. They've adapted to life in the cold through their thick feathers and big ol' flippy-flappy flippers. Snow petrel nests are actually made in rocks, which are darker than the surrounding snow, and are thus warmer from the sunlight than the surrounding snow. The birds seal the nest off with snow, which is glued in place with saliva. Now, sadly, here on Earth, we have these things called humans. They're the dominant species and essentially want to humanize everything. They don't always realize it, but occasionally they wreck biomes. The human impacts on this biome is harvesting the species of Antarctic to near extinction for economic benefit, killing and disturbing other species simply because they're either in the way of something, some kind of development or something like that, contaminating the soils, putting sewage into the sea, and leaving rubbish, cairns, and tracks of the Antarctic, even the most remote parts. Here we have an energy pyramid. Energy pyramid is a clever model that we did not think up of, sadly, but we are going to use anyways in this presentation for your benefit. You're welcome. Here we see it is layered through primary producers here at the bottom. Then we move up to primary consumers, which are those that eat autotrophs, which produce their own food, so heterotrophs. We move on to some more heterotrophs that buy these primary consumers. Then we reach the apex predator, which in this case is the mighty orca whale, the lord of the Antarctic. Here we have another diagram that we also did not think of to help other people understand it. You see, this is a more holistic view. From this concept, you see that everything kind of feeds off of everything else. Everything kind of needs everything else to survive. Just like in that one movie, like The Lion King or something like that. Probably not important though. There are lions in Antarctica. So this shows that, again, the orca whale is still the apex predator, but it also shows the other connections between the other animals, which is very important. I hope you passengers had all the fun that you could in the Antarctica biome, because currently we're moving on to a far warmer one, the coral reef biome, found only in shallow, warm, tropical seas. Corals dominate this biome, as would expected, and form reefs, also as expected. We're going to show you guys a couple more to your right and to your left as we dive down deep. Or shallow. We're not going deep. Corals don't do that. As mentioned earlier, the corals of the coral reef just so happen to love shallow tropical waters. This is due to the fact that their algae that they have symbiotic relationships with needs to photosynthesize. They need light. They can't live without it. And so without the algae, the coral will not survive either. So because of this, combined with just the location in general, this has become the rainforest of the ocean, being the most biodiverse landscape, biome, etc. on Earth. Our first plant friend over on this here journey is the mangrove. Mangrove is a species of tree that is tolerable to direct immersion in salt water, and their capacity to considerably enhance the abundance and diversity of fish and other marine life is astounding, actually, because they provide shelter similar to the corals for even more species of fish, which in turn are eaten by larger fish and other marine life, of course. Up next is photosynthetic seagrass. Of course, mangroves are photosynthetic as well, but they're partially above water, so it doesn't exactly count. They're used as a feeding nursery area for small fish, and or breeding grounds for lagoon residents and visitors. And then we have seaweed, which have holdfasts to attach to the seafloor, stripes for support instead of stems. Oh, forgive me, so silly. Stipes, silly. And blades to provide a large surface area to absorb sunlight under that ocean. It floats to keep the photosynthetic structures of the seaweed buoyant, so that it doesn't fall, droop down, and not absorb enough. Here we have a close-up of the coral polyp and the friendly algae within that we were talking about earlier. They absorb the sunlight, as mentioned earlier, and convert carbon dioxide and water through photosynthesis to provide energy for the whole reef. And in exchange, they get a home. Next we have benthic diatoms, which provide much of the primary production to the coral reef area. They photosynthesize as well. An angel shark. Pretty rare considering that these species are critically endangered species of sharks. We need to save them, guys. Its adaptations are camouflage to blend in with the environment. Its flat body helps it stay underground, and since it isn't a very fast swimmer, it waits and ambushes its prey. We must have spooked a blowfish on our way down, which are capable of expanding their bodies in seconds. They can stretch up to 1.5 times their size. The majority of blowfish are very toxic. Usually break it down when it's eating the blowfish with it. Good for you, blowfish. Look who's over there scuttling around. It's a horseshoe crab, possibly one of nature's greatest survivors, since it survived through three of history's major extinction events. The adaptations are that they can feed off almost any organic matter, have blue blood that coagulates when any bacteria enters their system, tolerance to habitats that fluctuates in salinity, and are able to live with oxygen levels so low that it would be fatal to other species. You go, horseshoe crab. Floating at the surface is a Portuguese man-of-war, made up of different polyps. It has a float for movement when the winds blow, similar to a sail on a boat. Long, stringy tentacles used to capture prey with a paralyzing poison, along with a length of 50 to 30 to even higher than that, I've heard, feet long. They can deflate the float to avoid predators on the surface and use the tentacles to defense, but still can end up as food for turtles, crabs, and sea slugs, and camouflage to help it blend in with the environment to avoid predators and catch prey. Here we have the pygmy seahorse looking straight at us. One of the slowest moving fish in the ocean. The males undergo pregnancy, as they have a shorter time between reproductive cycles than females, which have about 1.2 times longer than males. They seem to practice a limited version of mahogany, not the wood, the couples thing, by greeting each other every day, which can strengthen a relationship, or so I've heard. Sadly, here in the reefs, we also undergo coral bleaching on some of the corals when water surrounding the corals is either too acidic or too basic. Change in pH, they can't tolerate it. And this is caused by chemical pollution from agriculture and heavy industry, which damages coral reefs, nutrient loading from the discharge of fertilizer, waste feed, and other materials from the aquaculture and agriculture, resulting in eutrophication and oxygen depletion. Overfishing of the reefs, litter, mangrove cutting, and tourism also just makes these reefs so gosh darn more damaged. And here we have a simple energy pyramid for you kiddies at home. And here we have a simple food web for you kiddies at home. Yes, we are broadcasting at home in case you guys didn't know. This is live. Emerging around any of these locations, particularly around California, Africa, and various parts of Asia, Australia, and South America, we have deserts. Deserts are arid, making them among the driest biomes around. In Antarctica, of course, known for the lack of water, deserts are often very hot during the day, cold during the night. Due to the arid nature, nights are in fact ranging from negative 18 degrees Celsius, which is in complete contrast to the 25 to even 49 degrees Celsius that deserts typically experience. Precipitation has to be less than 10 inches for it to be considered a desert, and an example would be the Sahara Desert in North Africa. The Sonora Desert in Arizona is also a fine choice, being the wettest desert on Earth. Now look at this round little guy, the barrel cactus, aptly named. It lives in the Sonoran Desert. It often has a small red or yellow flower. It can also grow up to 8 to 10 feet tall. Next we have Devil's Claw, which isn't nearly as intimidating as it sounds. It's named for the seed, which is shaped like a claw. Ironic. Just kidding. Some of the only trees in the desert are junipers, which you must have stumbled upon. They can grow to be hundreds of years old and give a half-dead, half-alive appearance. Stop. This is Datura. It's pretty poisonous. It's lethal if ingested, so don't eat it. Still is a fine piece of organism to look at. Standing proud and tall in the Sonoran Desert, representing Arizona, we have the saguaro cacti, which are generic cacti of the Sonoran Desert, being spiky, tall, and green. They can actually grow up to 80 feet tall. It's a big cactus. The first animal on the stop is the ostrich, which are omnivorous, allowing them to eat most things in the environment, which is good. It's a shame to be picky in the desert. When a male ostrich travels, he travels with 2 to 5 females typically with him, which you could consider kind of a harem. Next up, we have the kangaroo rat. A rat is similar to the kangaroo in the fact that they both live in desert climates, and they both have long legs for hopping and jumping. It's kind of like the squirrel of the desert, and generally goes out at night when it's cooler. This little guy must be lost. Whoa, check out this close-up of a Texas horned lizard. They live near ant mounds for a stable food source, scooping them up with their tongue, munching on them with their teeth. Their scales prevent water loss in the desert. Up next is the African lungfish. Oddly enough, it will wrap itself up in a cocoon of mucus to keep itself moist, and thus kind of goes into a suspended animation. This means that it doesn't particularly act alive. It kind of hibernates, but isn't really asleep. Weird. And lastly, I think we found a fennec fox. It's a member of the fox family, of course. An animal that has very large ears and is similar to wolves and foxes, of course, which its ears allow it to keep prey underground and also to radiate heat off of its body to keep itself cool. Fun times, guys. Deserts, especially deserts in the Middle East, are definitely exploited for the rich oil that lies beneath. So, that's always fun, especially if we use a tactic like fracking. It's pretty ugly for the environment in that area. It's a cool food web for the people watching at home live stream. Just kidding, it's an energy pyramid. This time it's a real cool web for the people watching at home live stream. Boom. As you can see, wetlands are found all over the earth. Well, all over the earth in very limited areas, I guess you could say. Wetlands themselves are just areas with standard water, or areas with very moist soil. So this allows them to be very, very spread out, but aren't exactly particularly common. As mentioned, the wetlands basically just have to have a climate that allows for a lot of water to stand there. So typically, there's a lot of precipitation. Precipitation in that area is fairly low. Chances are it has to be connected to an external water source in order to gain its water to become an actual wetland. Here's our first plant, the pickerel weed. Pickerel weeds are flowering aquatic plants that have very long central stems and grow up to 2 to 4 feet tall with bright purple blooms. This is advantageous to attract pollinating insects and help it pollinate. Luckily enough, here we have the sundews. Sundews are oddly shaped plants that adapt to snagging and digesting insects that fall into them. Just due to the fact that many wetlands are actually void of nitrogen,
which plants absolutely require to survive. More famously known as the Venus flytrap, which are carnivorous plants that traps insects and digest them because, like the sun do, it too leaves a nitrogen-void soil and produces a sweet-scented nectar between its leaves. Then shots them when a small organism triggers 2 of its sensory areas within a specific time period. When breeding time comes in June, Venus flytraps fly suspended on roughly 12-inch stalks, which are above the trap apparatus, forming some kind of peace treaty, as it will, with the insects. Next, we have bulrushes, which are members of Typha, which includes many various other species, which you can call cattails, bulrushes, etc. They have long, straight stems that produce a condensed form of seeds and dissolves into fluffy seeds that go airborne. They have well-developed, let me see if I can pronounce this, parenchyma, which makes them tolerant of submersion, allowing them to gain oxygen even from the water. Look at this weird thing, the buttonbush. Buttonbush has an extensive fibrous root system that siphons nutrients out of the soil where it lives. All these plants have in common is that they are all adapted to the wetlands. Many plants have well-developed, let me see if I can say this again, parenchyma, which are air channels in leaves to help them respire within hypoxic soils that are common in wetlands. Areas where soil is void of nitrogen, many plants, as mentioned earlier, develop a form of carnivorism, allowing them to absorb nutrients from prey instead. Oh yeah, American alligator. This beauty. They are large crocodilians that range from North Carolina to Texas, frequently found in large freshwater wetlands areas, such as the Florida Everglades. They're ambush predators, using camouflage because, well, they look like a large flotsam piece of log or plant matter or something, and surprise to take earthbound animals underwater and drown them. Here showcasing the wetlands is the great blue heron, which are large wading birds with long legs and large wings, allowing them to slog through wet areas, and their pointed beaks allow them to snatch fish, frogs, and other slippery aquatic prey from the water and into their stomachs.
Here we found a muskrat. Muskrats are large aquatic rodents with long tails that act as rudders to help it steer while swimming, and large webbed feet that allow it to swim adeptly. They build shelters, called lodges, out of plant material, often cattails. Another common visitor to the wetlands, or, well, resident of the wetlands, depending on who you ask, are the salamanders such as the mud puppy shown here. Salamanders primarily breathe through their skin, but many aquatic species never lose their external gills that allow them to absorb more oxygen from the water, like these mud puppies, as well as axolotls and olms, which live in caves. Salamanders are opportunistic, carnivorous hunters, who eat insects, aquatic fish, etc. Bet you want to see this today. It's a walking catfish. The walking catfish is a species of freshwater catfish native to wetlands Southeast Asia that commonly dry up. To deal with this, the catfish can breathe air through its labyrinth organ, which allows it to absorb oxygen from the air. It relocates to different bodies of water by wriggling across the ground, breathing as it goes. You know, other animals, such as the salamanders, deal very well from breathing underwater. Even if they don't breathe underwater, most wetland animals are still adept swimmers. Oh boy, everyone's favorite time of the biome, human impacts. Freshwater wetlands are among the most altered biomes on Earth, due to draining them for space, which is extremely common, and introducing invasive species to the area, such as various species of snakeheads and Burmese pythons. Places like Florida that devour native populations of prey animals now compete predatory animals. It's an energy pyramid, guys. Dun dun dun. It's a typical food web, guys. Dun dun dun. Thank you for that. Up next is the grasslands, particularly temperate grasslands. They're located north of the Tropic of Cancer and south of the Tropic of Capricorn. So as for the climate of the temperate grassland biome, you can see here that, well, there's not a lot of precipitation going around. How do I know that? Well, that's because there aren't very many trees. See, the place is dominated by grasses and other small plant life, such as shrubs, because there's only 10 to 35 inches of precipitation a year. They tend to have hot summers with temperatures over 100 degrees being frequent, and cold winters with temperatures as low as negative 40 degrees Fahrenheit. Yes, guys, this is Fahrenheit, not Celsius this time. Although, the grasslands aren't sparse of trees. Common trees here are the cottonwoods, which have to survive prairie fires in order to live on the Great Plains. Cottonwoods did this specifically, oh well, I guess they did it back then, they do it now, by typically growing on the edges of rivers and streams and developing a very thick, corky bark upon maturity. As their seeds are dispersed in the wind, many end up landing on the surface of water, or have been stranded along the waterline on sandbars, islands, and riverbanks. If the river level does not fluctuate too much, allowing the seeds to establish itself, a new monarch of the plains will begin its life. Here we see a couple of oaks. Oaks have elaborate root systems that allow the oak to survive in the summers. Next up are willows, which aren't that common, but have tough roots that grow both underground and from aerial parts of the plant to obtain as much water as possible. They also have a very thick scaly bark, which allows protection from the elements and contains salicylic acid, which is a plant hormone, which is toxic in large amounts. Willow trees are able to take root from cutting or fallen branches. This increases their abundance. The willow does have tough roots too, which grow both underground and from the aerial parts of the plant to obtain, like I said, as much water as possible. Moving on, we have a grass, a very interesting grass at that, the blue grama, which, like most things called blue, such as potatoes and corn, it's not blue, sadly. It's found at elevations of 3,500 feet on the southwest plains of America, at 85,000, no, not 85,000, forgive me, 8,500 feet on the San Francisco mountains of Arizona, even at 10,000 feet in New Mexico. It will endure temperatures ranging from negative 40 degrees Fahrenheit to 110 degrees Fahrenheit, and in northern latitudes it becomes prominent on heavily grazed and trampled rangelands on arid, low productive ranges. In Montana, it will grow in grasslands varying from 2,000 to 5,000 feet. Anyways, blue grama is slightly alkaline tartlands as well. It is found on a wide range of soils. It favors the more coarse, well-drained soils. Moving on to a different plant, we have blazing stars. The growing point of many prairie plants is underground, where it can survive fire and regrow. Prairie grasses have narrow leaves that lose less water to evaporation than broad, flat leaves. Prairie plants have roots that extend downward for as much as 3.5 meters and form networks to absorb moisture during dry periods. Brightly colored flowers attract pollinators such as bees, wasps, and birds. What's a Great Plain without bison? I tell ya, they're beautiful, big guys, adapted to the extreme weather conditions of the Great Plains. From summer heat to winter cold and blizzards. In winter, bison can dig through deep snow with their heads to reach vegetation below. Here we can see the little prairie dogs. Prairie dogs are very colonial animals that live in complex networks of tunnels with multiple openings. Colonies are easily identified by the raised burrow entrances that give the diminutive prairie dogs some extra height when acting as sentries and watching for signs of danger. The tunnels contain separate rooms, I guess you could say, for sleeping, rearing young, storing food, and eliminating waste. It's wolves! Okay, it's one wolf. It's not wolves, it's wolf. Wolves do have teeth, though, and claws for hunting. The fur of the gray wolf, which this guy is a great insulator and keeps out moisture. The hearing of their sense of smell are a lot better than those of humans. The fleshy paws they have for better traction in the winter, too.
Their eyes have adapted in a way that gives them very good night vision, adapted to seeing all the prey lurking about. Here we have coyotes, wolves' scrawnier cousin. But the thick fur of coyotes, similar to that of wolves, so I share that, helps to keep it warm throughout the winter. Its color blends in with the environment, providing the coyote with excellent camouflage. Coyotes are cunning hunters that can run up to 40 miles per hour to catch prey, often combining their efforts by hunting in groups of 2 or even 3. Coyotes have senses of smell and hearing, which are extremely adept, that contribute to their success as predators. Looming overhead are hawks. Hawks on the Great Plains have hollow bones and strong wings to fly, hooked beaks to rip flesh from their prey, strong claws to catch their prey, haul their prize up to tree branches for consumption. Oh boy, human impact. As you can see by this lovely picture, even though it's banned now, humans have fully exploited areas such as the Great Plains for their copious amounts of wild creatures, such as bison, which are now protected, but at most of the point in human history, totally weren't. And also causes these areas to be burned down, sadly. Burning fossil fuels changes the climate, of course. From all these impacts, animals lose their homes. It's just, oh my gosh, it's so sad. Gotta do something, guys. Gotta protect the environment. Another energy flowy thing. Da 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 da. It's another food web. Moving on, we've, of course, moved on. Hooray for redundancy. To the lovely deep blue oceans. Typically pelagic in nature, which means that they're open oceans, which is the oceans that we're going to be talking about today. Oceans are scattered literally all over the world. Not even scattered, I guess you could say. Continents are scattered within the ocean. 71% of the planet is ocean. As you can see, oceans cover most of the world. So, they're kind of expansive in terms of climate. They're tropical oceans, temperate oceans, polar oceans, etc. Deep ocean, shallow ocean, etc. Oceans are big and very mysterious at that. One of the most common plants in the deep oceans are floating seaweeds, which have holdfasts to attach themselves to the seafloor, but some can just float, such as the sargasso, common in the Sargasso Sea. Up next is free-floating algae. The algae has adapted to the ability to reproduce asexually and sexually. Environmental evolutions have forced the adaptation to red, brown, yellow, and green-colored algae, which each blend in with their environmental surroundings. This adaptation helps algae avoid being completely consumed by local fish species. An algae residing in polluted waters has internally adapted and produced chemical variances as part of the adaptation process. These plants physically and chemically change their composition in order to adapt to pollutants in the water. Up next are free-floating phytoplankton. Try saying that 3 times fast. Okay, good try. Anyways, phytoplankton are possibly the largest, well, along with algae, produce a colony, I guess you could say group, of producers in the world on this planet. And they really just absorb the most oxygen, or the most carbon dioxide, I should say, and release the most oxygen. They're even more beneficial to us than rainforests. Good thing too, because we don't cut them down. Rainforest. Next is free-floating kelp, which have root-like anchors called holdfasts, but in this form, they really don't need them or don't even have them at all. They're free-floating, don't need them. Like terrestrial forests, though, in places where kelp is planted, kelp forests support biodiversity and provide homes for thousands of invertebrates, as well as marine mammals, and marine vertebrates such as fish, to protect them from storms or even when escaping predators. Our last showcase of this mighty fine excursion throughout the ocean is battlegrass, which has developed adaptations to deal with wave action and salinity in their marine environment. Returning is the angel shark. Typically found around coral reefs or along the seafloor, angel sharks often do travel great expanses of ocean, making them partially pelagic. We've already heard about these awesome guys though, so we'll move on to the next organism. It's dolphins! Yes, it is dolphins. Dolphins seem to keep warm due to their layer of blubber beneath their skin, despite being mammals and not fish within the ocean. The dolphin's body became very, very streamlined from their ancient ancestor that was apparently land-based, in order to allow it to move more efficiently throughout the water. The nostrils move from the front of its snout to the top of its head, which is extremely convenient, forming a blowhole. This means that dolphins only need to break the surface just to breathe. Up next is whale shark, the largest fish in the ocean, with a broad food supply, because they snack on plankton, immense size, small eyes that can roll it back into the eye cavity, covered by a flap of skin when injured, an ability to detect EM fields, electromagnetic for you guys, transmitted by other animals. This shark is quite a predator, though it won't hurt you unless you get too close to it. The devilfish is a species of ray, very large ray at that, which have horn-like cephalic fins to assist in their planktonic feeding excursions. And finally, the green sea turtle, which have long paddle-like flappers to swim throughout the water quickly, camouflage to blend in with the water partially, shell for protection. They can stay underwater for about 5 hours. This guy is totally adapted to pelagia. Tragically, and absolutely terribly, was the Gulf oil spill from a couple years ago. It caused mass destruction and mass loss of marine population and human resources, and a lot of other catastrophes. The oceans are so important, and we cannot afford to make so many mistakes like this. It's an energy pyramid. It's an energy pyramid. It's a food web. It's a food web. Found all over the world in marine environments. Well, think deep rifts such as Mariana Trench, deepest point in Earth, which is found in the Pacific Ocean. We're about to go down to Benthos, the bottom of the ocean. Strap on your diving gear, guys. It's about to get weird. Benthos is at the bottom of the ocean. Deep, dark, and cold. You see those lines? They're produced by organisms, which have bioluminescence bacteria living symbiotically within them that allow them to either attract prey or prevents them from becoming prey. Primary heat source of benthos are the deep sea vents. Vents in the crust where hot material spurts forth, warming the water around it and forming small communities around that area. Okay, so being so deep, and mainly just so dark, there aren't plants in benthos. There aren't plants in the deep sea. They're chemosynthetic bacteria instead. They don't photosynthesize. They gain all the nutrients they need from the aforementioned vents. All they have to do is sit around and chemosynthesize. Although I will say that they do find shelter in another member of the deep sea ecosystem, living within them and chemosynthesizing for them. So, it's another win-win, similar to the coral polyps and the algae within them, only much deeper and quite weirder. Are you ready for it? It's already here. It's the giant tube worm, also known as Riccia from their Latin name. Giant tube worms are that partner the chemosynthetic bacteria find shelter within. They hang around vents and just kind of chill, absorbing nutrients and having their bacteria synthesize for them. It's really cool. Or really warm, because it's like the vents, so it's kind of the opposite of cool. What a freaky face. Look at that, it's the megamouth shark. Yeah, you heard me. That thing's a shark. It doesn't really have large teeth, it just kind of swims along, scooping things up. It's a deep water species of filter feeding shark, similar to the basking shark and the whale shark. Although it's really awkward. Slow moving for a shark due to its flabby, rounded body, irregularly shaped tail fin, and unsleek form. It's still pretty well developed for the ocean life, though. You know, deep ocean anyway. In filter feeds, it doesn't have to be particularly fast, and its gaping maw allows it to inhale a lot of plankton, krill, and other biological jetsam. Look out, it's Priadubaya. Yeah, hear me. Priadubaya, the giant siphonophore. The giant siphonophore is a free-dwelling colonial organism, meaning it's composed of many other smaller organisms that floats around the deep sea, snagging small invertebrates, such as crustaceans and fish larvae, from the water and devouring them. It's called giant for a reason, too. Priadubaya can grow up to 40 meters long. This little guy is a tripod fish. This fish grows to be about 12 to 14 inches long and walks. Yes, walks. With its long stilt-like fins along the seabed in the abyssal zone, sucking up prey that comes by, such as zooplankton, deep-sea copepods. Walking with its fins conserves energy, because it uses less in swimming. These fish are hermaphrodites, meaning they have sexual organs of both daddies and mommies. Because finding a member of your own species is difficult enough in the benthic zone. And lastly, we have the vampire squid, or if you prefer Latin, the vampire squid from hell. It's not from hell, it's from Earth, but still. Its scientific name means the vampire squid from hell. Vampirotoothless infernalis. Yeah, infernalis I think means from hell. And with its vivid red color, big reflective eyes, and unusual defense mechanism, it isn't hard to see why it got its name. Vampire squid have massive eyes to detect bioluminescent creatures swimming around with it, aka prey, or predator. When it feels threatened by said predator, it has a webbing tentacles, like a webbing of tentacles. Yeah, so awkwardly, like a cloak. Like a vampire cloak. So weird. Anyways, its tentacles are webbed. And within them are spines. Yes, its tentacles on the inside are covered with spines. It turns itself, well, kind of inside out by wrapping its tentacles above its head. And then it just kind of wiggles the end of its bioluminescent tentacle tips. And like you and me, the predator will be very confused. It engulfs swimming organisms such as crustaceans like copepods, and cnidarians like deep-sea jellyfish as well. Okay, so there aren't really people going around in benthos messing things up like how they do on the surface and stuff like that, but in terms of similar things. On the holistic side, it's also affected by humans. You see, this is trash. I think it's sheets of metal, from what I could tell, that are, 13,000 feet deep and 300 miles offshore from God knows when? And geez, passengers, we gotta kinda step up our game on this whole pollution combating thing. You know what I'm talking about? Yeah, it's nuts. Oh well, hopefully the fish without bioluminescent organs won't be able to see it. Oh well. It's a food web after all. It's a food web after all. It's a food web after all. Something. Here we see the map on the locations of savannas, which are found all over the world, kind of primarily in Africa, but also extending into India, northern Australia, and parts of South America. Savannas typically have two seasons, wet and dry, with the dry season being actually winter for most of them, while wet tends to be the summer. Generally, savanna is a warm biome overall. In the dry season, about 4 inches of rainfall falls on average, and during said dry season, when it is cooler, the average temperature is around 70 degrees Fahrenheit. Some plants in the savanna would be continued. Just kidding. The baobab tree. Got you guys. Just kidding. The baobab tree can grow up to 25 meters tall and looks like a tree that's kind of been turned upside down. It's really awkward looking with its plump trunk, and its awkward looking branches that just look like roots. Moving on is Bermuda grass. Bermuda grass is a weed, well, to some people, which grows after grass fires, which are common in the African savanna where it lives. Next up is the candelabra tree, which, guess what, looks like a candelabra. Candelabra trees are common around the equator and savannas and can grow up to 30 to 40 feet tall. Warning though, if its white sap touches your skin, you will form a blister there. If it gets in your eyes, it could very easily blind you. Don't cut it. This guy's just as bewildered as you and I by this elephant grass. Elephant grass is extremely tall, grows in dense clumps up to 10 feet in height, of course. Next up, we have the kangaroo's paw, which grows in Western Australia. A notable part of this plant is its red unscented flower that grows up to 10 centimeters long. Like any desert, a major adaptation of these plants is the ability to store water for a long period of time, which many of these plants do. Our first animal, what a guy, the African elephant. Like many other types of animals in the African savanna, it is pretty large. The elephant also has tusks. They are so large, they are the largest land animal on Earth. Yeah, African elephants, man. Big dudes. Next up is the emu. Similar to the ostrich, the emu is, I believe, in its family. The emu is the largest bird in Australia, well, possibly tied with the cassowary, and lays 5 to 20 eggs per mating season. What a cute little guy. Teddy bear, right? No, it's not some kid's toy. It's a koala bear, which isn't really a bear. It's a marsupial, but, you know, whatever. It has rough paws for traction on climbing trees. It also sleeps for most of the day, because its digestive tract just absorbs so little nutrients from the food that it eats. What big teeth you have, Mr. Nile Crocodile. The Nile crocodile lives along the Nile region in North Africa, and its long snout helps it to snatch up fish in a short line. It also can ambush large prey that are on the land, drinking from the water side. This is also a very large animal, growing up to 5 meters long. Here we have the black mamba, fastest snake in the world, which can grow to be 14 feet long and move at 12 miles per hour. Awkwardly enough, the fastest human can run at 27.44 miles per hour, but at the same time most humans don't run for that long, well, that fast, or for as long as some of these racers. absolutely sorrowful human impact on this environment is poaching. Like I said, many of these animals are large, such as the rhinoceros and the elephant. They are hunted and killed for their ivory. Other animals are hunted and killed as well, but rhinoceros have almost completely suffered the worst out of them. Oh, hey, look, what's that? It's an energy pyramid, yeah. It's a pretty good food web, very extensive, I like it. Yeah. Up next is the taiga biome, which is extremely cold, but we'll get to that in a minute. Found throughout most of northern Russia, of course, northern Europe, northern Canada, etc. But not too far north, because then we're going to get into another biome. We don't want to do that just yet. Taiga biome, as mentioned earlier, is pretty darn cold. This biome is, biome, it's pretty large as well. Very expansive, very condensed areas. Average temperatures range from negative 65 degrees Fahrenheit to 30 degrees Fahrenheit during winter, and summer ranging from 20 degrees Fahrenheit to 70 degrees Fahrenheit, which isn't too bad. Yeah, here we found, let's see if I can document them. Yes, first we have the black spruce, which is a tree that can grow 25 meters tall and in place of leaves has needles, similar to most of the other trees, plants, etc. in the taiga biome. The needles are less susceptible to frost than broad leaves, and most have adapted this way. Accompanying the black spruce is the white spruce, which is similar. Spiny tree that holds water. Essentially the same thing. Not precisely, different colored bark, slightly different, but very similar. Up next is the white fir, which can stand up to 60 feet tall and live for up to 100 years, and it's often the tree used for Christmas time, primarily in these cold northern countries. Next up is the Sitka spruce. Unlike many other spruce trees that has needles as opposed to leaves, it is very large and perennial. Whoa, a broadleaf and a taiga? Just kidding. The paper birch, or white birch, has bark that peels horizontally. The white birch may also be found in seasonal deciduous forests, as well as this taiga biome. Right here we have the wolverine. Wolverine looks similar to a mix of a bear and a badger, can grow up to 87 centimeters in length, and roams about in the snow. The next animal we'll greet with a snarl is the gray wolf. Very, very popular. Gray wolves hunt in packs and are canines from the northern parts of Russia, as well as northern United States. But, of course, it also extends primarily into Canada, to the far more taiga part of it. Another common and prevalent animal within the taiga biome is the grizzly bear. It's a very powerful bear. It's a very, very large. It can run up to 35 miles per hour. But hey, that's what you expect from a Latin name like Ursus arctos horribilis. Northern lynx is a cat that's similar to that of a house cat, though not precisely. They hunt rabbits similar to cats and have excellent vision at night. The red fox is adaptable, so it too can be found in the taiga biome. It's kind of iconic in terms of intelligence and adaptability for animals, because it's found in deciduous forests, taigas, etc. Taigas suffer heavily from logging, so as a human impact, logging is certainly one of the largest threats to taigas. Food pyramid, energy pyramid. Food web, food web, food web, food web, food web, food web. Moving on, are seasonal deciduous forests, or temperate deciduous forests. which are found all over the world, on every continent, primarily being extensive in most of Europe and the eastern half of the United States, as well as eastern Asia. Although Australia and various parts of other countries such as India also have deciduous forests are seasonal and temperate. So the average temperature in summer can reach around 75. Annual average tends to be around 50. It has seasons, meaning it experiences winter, spring, summer, and autumn, in all uniquely throughout the world. First stop on our journey, the Gilda rose. This rose is typically found in Scotland and has a snowy white blossom. What's great about this plant is that its bark can be used as an herbal medicine. Its berries can be used as ink, making it quite useful, eh? We are sorry if we offended any races here today on the Fresh Spring Chicken. Anyways, right here is the lady fern. Lady fern was a plant apparently favored during Victorian times for its beauty and also grows in the taiga biome, but primarily in the deciduous forest biome. Today its leaves are used as decorations. A common tree in the deciduous forest biome is the white oak. It can grow from 80 to even 100 feet tall, and in May and June it grows acorns. The American beech tree is a tall, wide tree that grows in the eastern parts of America. Its nuts can also be harvested for food. Common plant adaptations is in the fall tend to go dormant, similar to the common lime tree of Europe and most of the other plants listed on this list, that are trees anyway. They go dormant and they just kind of pull all the chlorophyll out of their leaves and in their trunk and go to sleep, kind of. Another common animal. Moving along, we have the common coyote. Slick little guy slinking into this biome. He is pretty common in the deciduous forest biome. He looks kind of like a crossbreed of the fox and the wolf. Like the fox, he's an intelligent animal. Coyotes have both their mother and their father raised pups in terms of their groups, oddly enough. Up next is a European red squirrel. Probably looking to avoid that coyote. European red squirrels is a rodent, and they're not a territorial species, allowing them to live close by. Squirrels also change their look in winter, making themselves become fatter and fatter to accompany the changing of the season, allowing them to survive. Looky here, it's the platypus. The platypus is native to Australia. It's one of the few mammals that lay eggs, as well as the echidna, but we'll get to them later. The males of this species have a venomous barb behind their legs, so warning for that. They're aquatic, and they live in the temperate deciduous forests of Australia, in case I didn't mention that before. Prowling along at up to 590 pounds, it's the American black bear, that can run up to 25 miles per hour, and is omnivorous, similar to humans. Loud and proud, it's the American bald eagle, a bird of prey that's also the national bird of America. Its lifespan is up to 45 to 50 years long. Quite the bird, snagging fish from the water is its typical primary means of predation, and eating those fish is its primary consumption method, if they speak. Similar to the taiga, the deciduous forests of temperate areas seem to fall into the category of being extensively logged. So that's pretty similar in terms of human impact on them. Energy pyramid. Moving right along is the temperate rainforest. Now, the temperate rainforest, dissimilar to the tropical rainforest, is temperate. Big surprise. It's located around the world, but in very sparse and small areas in terms of distribution, most commonly stretching from the Pacific coast of Oregon to southern Alaska. It is also fairly common in a portion of Indochina, southwestern Japan, southern Chile, southwestern Australia, and most of New Zealand. There are places like the Hull Rainforest in Washington, USA, and the Great Alway National Park in Victoria, Australia being two commonly visited locations. Speaking of, here is the Hull Rainforest. North American standards for rainforests demand that the annual precipitation is at least 140 centimeters, 55 inches, and that the mean annual temperature lies between 39 degrees Fahrenheit and 54 degrees Fahrenheit, 2 to 12 degrees Celsius. However, Oceanian standards state ecological factors as opposed to climatological standards, stating that the sky must be covered by at least 70% canopy, that the forest is composed with species of flora that do not require fire in order to reproduce, and seedlings do not require a large amount of sunlight in order to photosynthesize due to said canopy. Growing only in rock crevices in the Olympic National Park of the Olympic Peninsula of Washington, USA, Piper's bellflower, which is this little guy, blooms blue-purple flowers from July to August, adorning the rainforested mountain crevices where it grows. Up next is the Sitka spruce. The Sitka spruce grows up to 5 feet diameter and up to 180 feet tall. So the Sitka spruce is tight compared to other trees, but not in most temperate rainforests. Huge trees with extremely spread out root systems is a common adaptation in these parts. To support such tall trees dominate the landscape of the Olympic Mountains, a large portion of British Columbia, and parts of Victoria. This tree is evergreen as well. It is used for its resonant wood to make guitars. Next up is the only tree within its genus APES toxicon, is APES toxicon punctatum. This evergreen tree is native to the temperate rainforests of southern Chile and southern Argentina. Can reach 15 meters tall, which makes it a large portion of the canopy in Chile's Valdivian temperate rainforest and Magellanic subpolar forests, primarily the former over the latter though. Another plant is the licorice fern, native to the Olympic Peninsula of Washington, USA, and grows in the understory with an entire plethora of mosses and lichens. It grows to roughly 12 inches tall and is natively harvested. It may not bear fruit, but its rhizomes have a powerful, unmistakably licorice-like taste to them. And finally, we have the Japanese false cypress. Native to the islands of Honshu and Kyushu in Japan, this tree ranges from 150 meters tall to 50 meters tall, and is commonly around 2 meters in diameter. It's also commonly used to practice bonsai, which is the Japanese cultivation of miniature trees, and seems to be more beloved in its dwarf or juvenile form. As a juvenile, the trees have glaucous blue-green foliage, and botanists have developed strains that retain their juvenile appearance, as well as small varieties with yellow foliage. Another species that is the first animal on our journey is the American black bear. The American black bear is the smallest bear species native to North America, and western populations are surprisingly far different from the eastern populations, giving to an entire salvo of different colors, including this white Kermode bear standing next to a standard black bear. It's just a recessive gene, and so any black bear can really become Kermode, if they're born that way anyways. And look, it's a Pacific giant salamander snacking on a banana slug. Pacific giant salamanders are a species of salamander, of course, that grow up to 30 centimeters long, and usually large for a salamander. They range from northern California to southern British Columbia, and, like most salamanders, metamorphosize into a more terrestrial form upon reaching adulthood. It still needs to keep those skin moist in order to respire, though. Here down under in Australia, some of the temperate rainforest animals are rosellas, which are parrots native to southeastern Australia, Tasmania, and were introduced to New Zealand. They have extremely brightly colored plumage, and grow up to 30 centimeters long. Back to the Olympic Peninsula to see the Roosevelt elk, the largest subspecies of elk in North America, which can grow up to 1,300 pounds. Finally, we have the poodoo, the smallest deer in the world. They're found in the temperate rainforest of Chile and grow only about 35 to 45 centimeters and weigh roughly 13.5 kilograms. Deforestation is also a very prominent threat in temperate rainforests, primarily in the United States and Chile, due to their high populations relative to their scale, in various areas where there are temperate rainforests. This makes them very exploitable for logging in combination with their very mild temperatures. Energy pyramid is pretty darn cool, yeah. It's a food web. I said it's a food web. Moving on, we have the chaparral, which is located primarily in southwestern California, western Spain, and portions of the Mediterranean, as well as portions of southwestern Australia, the area around Cape Town, South Africa. The chaparral is dry. It's primarily composed of shrub or scrub-like life. It's not parched like the desert, but it's still dry, receiving around 17 inches of rainfall per year, and is very warm. Temperatures ranging up to 100 degrees Fahrenheit, which is pretty common. Fires are also prevalent here due to its dryness and ability to burn. The first plant in the chaparral is the jojoba. The jojoba is a shrub native to the western United States, inhabiting states like California. It's flowering and produces small fruits and seeds within. The seeds are then used to create jojoba oil. Continuing on, we have the blue oak, which is native to California and has a glaucous, waxy coating over its leaves, the texture of which protects them from expelling large amounts of water when they photosynthesize, which is a common adaptation in the chaparral. Its name for these species being bluish-green. Next up is the king protea. King protea is a cactus that lives only around Cape Town area of South Africa, and is in fact the national flower of South Africa. Like other cacti, it performs a different type of photosynthesis that allows it to retain more water out of the process. It has a waxy exterior that saves water. Next up is the Mission manzanita, which is a flowering shrub native to southern and Baja California's peninsula. Its common name means little apple in Spanish, and the first part of its scientific name, Xylococcus bicolor, means woodberry. This is due to the fact that their small fruits have a very small amount of flesh on them and are very woody. To adapt to their wildfire-prone environment, the shrubbery sprouts from its base after the most of it is already burned away, which is typically very effective for the plant. Finally is the Cucamonga mangrove, native to southern and Baja California. This plant is a large tuberous root base and grows up to 220 pounds. Develop vines that grow up to 20 feet in length. However, the most odd thing about this plant is its fruit, which is covered in prickles, and it spreads seeds not just by having an animal eat it, but opening and having them scatter in the wind. The Cucamonga mangrove's fruit just keep growing until they literally burst, scattering the seeds. The first animal is this little guy, the California mantis. Remember the mantids growing about 60 millimeters in length? California mantis is at ease in the southern and Baja California's chaparral. Its exoskeleton conserves water, and like most mantids, is an intent predator through ambush, lunging out at really anything smaller than itself, and snatching them up into its feeding mouth. Next up we have the California condor, which is the largest bird in North America, boasting a wingspan of 9 feet and a 25-pound body. They average to live about 60 years, but can live up to 80. California condors are scavengers, and are extremely threatened by the use of lead bullets by hunters, because they would feed on the carcasses and develop lead poisoning. They went extinct in the wilds from 1988 to 1991, but were reintroduced in 1992, and now there are roughly 237 flying in southwestern California. Here's the mule deer, which is native to basically all over the United States and Canada west of the Rocky Mountains, even descending into Mexico. Mule deer are very common in multiple biomes, including forests and, of course, chaparrals. Next up is the Bezoar goat. native to Crete, Greece, and other Greek isles, Turkey, Iran, and Pakistan. Modern domesticated goats descended from these wild goats. Go up to 300 pounds, stand almost 4 feet tall. Oddly enough, males and females are packed together in a group of roughly 50 goats. The males will either be solitary or in an all-male pack. And finally is the cactus wren. The cactus wren lives in arid and semi-arid climates in the western United States, including the chaparral of southern California and northern Mexico. These birds grow around 97 inches in length and are the largest wren in the United States. They eat insects such as ants and grasshoppers, and fruits and seeds. As mentioned earlier, because there are so many scavengers in this biome, hunting with lead bullets here was certainly a problem, causing even the most majestic of birds in this area to go almost extinct, and completely extinct in the wild. Energy pyramid, energy pyramid, energy pyramid, yeah. Is food red, food red, food red, food red, food red, food red. Anyways, moving on is an extremely similar biome called the temperate woodlands, which are located very similarly in places where the chaparral is, including the Mediterranean area, large chunks of Spain, the San Francisco Bay Area, southwestern Australia, western Chile, and southern South Africa. Temperate woodlands is essentially a wetter, cooler version of the chaparral, and has very similar traits to it. Because of this, it makes wildfires not as frequent, although they still occur, flora more typical to the typical Mediterranean climate, complete with olive trees. Because there's more moisture, there's less scrubland, and, unexpectedly, more woodland. Although dissimilar to a forest, there is a minimal canopy, copious amounts of sunlight to filter in for low growth. First up on this list is eucalyptus, which is native to Australia and its surroundings and expansive throughout the coast of the country. This plant is a tree that can range from becoming a small shrub to a very tall tree, and ranging all across Oceania. Different species live according to their surroundings. Fairly good-sized ones are native to the woodland areas. Next stop is the western banksia. Growing these trees are woody shrubs, depending on the species. Western banksias are dispersed throughout southwestern Australia. The largest stand almost 30 meters tall. The flowers are cylindrical, nectar-rich conglomerates of smaller flowers that animals such as lorikeets pollinate. Up next is the argon tree, a single species genus of tree that is endemic to southwestern Morocco and grows up to 10 meters tall and live up to 200 years. These nuts are harvested to produce argon oil, which is a component in various cosmetics as well as in cooking. Peculiarly, goats frequently climb these trees. And we have the acacia tree, trees that grow in Australia and the Mediterranean region. Australian acacias tend to be thornless, while non-Australian species are almost always thorny. More peculiarly, 19 different species of acacia can release hydrogen cyanide from their leaves, which occasionally leads to the death of livestock. And yes, the olive trees, which are dispersed all throughout the Mediterranean, being a cash crop for oil, cuisine, and other uses for countries like Italy and Greece where they are commonly grown. They've been used since biblical times and are mentioned multiple times in the Bible and the Quran. First animal up here is the mallee fowl, which are short, stocky, ground-dwelling birds native to southwestern Australia. They're roughly the size of a chicken. Pairs only come together when breeding season arrives to mate and build mounds for their eggs. Next is thorny devil, which is thorny, mottled, and reptilian, because it's a lizard. It can grow up to 8 inches in length and live up to 20 years. Native all across Australia except for the eastern coast, they go into defend them from predators and scales to conserve water. Another spiny bloat that we'll find here down under is the echidna, which is a monotreme or egg-laying mammal, native to Australia and New Guinea. Its diet consists primarily of ants and termites that can scoop up with its long tongue. They have large spines to defend themselves from predators. This here is a honey possum. The honey possum is a small tree-dwelling marsupial that grows only up to 9 centimeters native to southwestern Australia. It is one of the few entirely nectarvivorous animals, meaning it only consumes nectar for sustenance. They tend to live amongst or near banksias, which are rich in nectar. It has a long, anteater-like tongue that it uses to ingest nectar. And finally, we have the Dryandra moth. The caterpillar of this moth is brown and orange, with supple eye spots covering its body lengthwise. As a larva, it feeds and lives on Banksia, and then pupates into a moth with large eye spots covering both wings. It is native to southwest Australia. Many animals in this biome are nectivarious, primarily birds, insects, and small mammals because of the native flora. And a lot of the plants here tend to have small, oval-shaped leaves because they're less susceptible to drying out, less susceptible to being destroyed by other animals, and there's still copious amounts of sunlight here so they can absorb it. So the human impact on this biome is that buildings kill away habitats due to urban sprawl, cars and buildings give off toxins going into the waters kill animals and plants, and usage of said shrubland for growing game and commercial crops. So, more fun time. Pyramid, yeah! Is the food web, yeah! Next up is the tropical rainforest, endemic to primarily South America, as 1/3 of the world's rainforest is located in Brazil, Africa, East Asia, and across Oceania. Rainforests are very wet and very warm, leading to a very large amount of biodiversity in the area. Some parts get over 250 centimeters of rain per year. The first plant on our list will be the Bengal bamboo. It physically adapts to its surrounding by growing tall plants that can get a lot of rain and sunlight. Next up is the coconut tree. Its trunk is sturdy but flexible, supporting by many long roots that keep a coconut palm alive after tipping over or leaning. When not able to survive temperatures below freezing, coconut palm has no problem tolerating the present humidity, summer heat. The twiline tree of South America has incredibly hard, woody bark, making it extremely difficult to cut down. Mangrove trees are also native to jungles and are tolerable to direct immersion in salt water, which allows their capacity to considerably enhance the abundance and diversity of reef fish and other types of marine life throughout the coral reef ecosystem, as well as the ecosystem above them. The terrestrial one. Next up is the jambu, which has extremely festive, looking food. It definitely attracts animals to come take a bite and spread its seed. With a coat that makes it almost invisible to prey until it's too late. It's staring right at you. It's the Bengal tiger. As you can see in the dark very well due to its eyes, it's very precise hearing. It can see infrasound, as well as having retractable claws. Next is the largest venomous snake in the world, king cobra. It has a poison that attacks, or rather, a venom, not poison, because venom is different, that attacks the nervous system of the prey, which is usually larger than them, such as elephants, which it can take down. It doesn't eat them, but it can take them down, paralyze them. Next up is the African forest elephant. Forest elephants are adapted to living in dense forests. Tusks are straight, since curved ones might get caught in the underbrush and vines of the forest. They are smaller so that they can move around the dense forest more easily. No, it's not Squidward. It's the proboscis monkey, which is a very good swimmer and can even outpace crocodiles. Apparently. And finally, there's Lynn Slog. The sloth actually has algae that grows in the grooves of its fur because it's slow moving. Now the greenish color helps it camouflage itself amongst the foliage. Like all other forests in the world, they are definitely prone to logging and deforestation, which is the primary threat to them as of right now. Food web. Yeah, it's an energy pyramid, not a food web. This one's the food web. Yeah! Up next are tropical seasonal forests, which extend all throughout various places in the southern India, Vietnam area, as well as various places common in Africa, South America, and even the United States, northern tip of Australia. Unlike a tropical rainforest, tropical seasonal forest has, seasons. It has a dry season and a wet season, when rain doesn't fall and rain does fall. Although this forest is typically very warm year-round. The temperature is generally above 63 degrees Fahrenheit. Rainfall is generally around 2,000 up to 2,000 millimeters per year, and anywhere above 250 millimeters per year. Up first is the Desnuda tree, which has green bark, oddly enough. Up next is the jungle-fied acacia tree, which typically does have thorns in order to keep plant-eating creatures away, and has a symbiotic relationship with ants, where thorns act as a home and the ants fend off bugs that eat the plant's leaves. Here in the distance is a columnar cactus, which really just sops up the rain. Like all cacti, it has a different type of photosynthesis and very waxy outer coating. Appearing as a symbol for many different religions, it's the lotus flower. The lotus flower has leathery leaves that minimize water loss. Finally, we have the ironwood tree, which tends to have very, very, very waxy leaves, similar to the lotus flower. Our first animal that we've encountered is the white rhinoceros, which has a keen sense of smell and is native to Africa. Next up is the giraffe, which is long neck allows it to reach the very top leaves, prime for picking. The Asian elephant, which awkwardly enough's Latin name is Elephas maximus, and is not the largest elephant. The African elephant is significantly larger. And finally, we have the Komodo dragon, which is toxic but not poisonous nor venomous. See, it has very nasty bacteria brewing throughout its saliva in its mouth. So when it bites a creature, it infects them. Like all other forested biomes, wood loss due to logging, habitat loss, urban sprawl encroaches upon it. It's another one. It's another one. Hey, you there, I see you. You're another energy transferring food web. And finally, we have our final destination. We started off at the bottom in Antarctica, now we worked our way north to tundra. The tundra is located in northern Asia, Europe, and America. Being so far north, the tundra is extremely cold. It has, you figure. It's also typically very dry, receiving only 6 to 10 inches of precipitation per year. It can get as cold as negative 70 degrees in the tundra. It's not as cold as Antarctica. The first plant we come across on our list is the bearberry. The bearberry is a low-growing evergreen. Since it is low-growing, it is able to avoid the chilling wind of the tundra. You'll find that many other plants in this biome share this adaptation, as most are very low-growing to the ground where it's warmer. Next up is the diamond leaf willow, which in other biomes the willow could grow 30 feet tall, possibly taller. Here, it only grows a few inches off the ground to avoid the frozen weather. Next is the pasque flower. The pasque flower only grows in the southern parts where heat can be directed to it. Because of this, it tends to have very dark leaves, which a lot of other plants in the general area also have. Standing short but so adorably is the little tiny little Arctic willow. Separate from the willow before, it is adapted to cold climates better than warm climates, of course, and is totally tiny. Our first animal on our stop is the Arctic fox, which changes its color patterns from winter to summer, being white in the winter and brown with flecks of white in the summer, to be camouflaged to match its surroundings and adapt. Next up is the mighty polar bear, the largest bear in the world. The polar bear is an adept swimmer and is actually black underneath. Its fur isn't even white, it's clear and reflects light back at you, making it appear white and blending it with the snow. Next up is the caribou.
a grazer related to deer and elk, and oddly enough, the males and females of the species have antlers. Next up is the shaggy woolly muskox, and many animals similar to it, such as the caribou, the Arctic fox, etc., also have extremely thick fur coats, which is another adaptation to the tundra biome. And finally, we have the tundra ermine. I presume that's how you pronounce it. The ermine lives in trees for the south of the taiga, but also is found in the tundra itself. They also live in little rock crevices to survive. And finally, a human interaction with this biome is, of course, the pilfering of oil. What a shock. Because of this, oil spills have been common up here too. Another energy pyramid, blah 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 blah. On this food web note, we would like to thank you for joining the UNS for Spring Chicken, and we would like to welcome you back next time on the tour. The next tour of the biomes, probably. I'll be here all week. Thank you for joining us. You may exit to your left or to your right. I am Captain Fantasy, signing off.